Oh, there's Dean Queenan. Hello.
Hi, Zainab. How are you? Thank you for
Good.
doing this.
Yes,
Nice to
thanks for
see
having
you.
me. Good to see you as well.
Always nice to have you.
Thank you.
Zainab, do you know Jenabu is the African version of Zainab?
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful to know. Beautiful.
Yeah. My parents wanted to name me Zainab, but they said we're African, so we're gonna use the other version of it, but that's what it means. So
Oh, that's
just wanted
beautiful.
you to know
How do you
that.
pronounce it again?
Jenabu.
Jenabu.
So it's actually Zainab, but Zenabu,
Right.
but Jenabu. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm just going to give it about, I want to say 3 more minutes. We'll start at 5:35 just in case there's anybody else finishing up something.
I know the dean is coming, so expect her to pop up very soon.
Okay, I think we have a good amount of people here so we can get started. And the event is being recorded, so it will be posted later to the school's Vimeo page. So salam everyone, Ramadan Mubarak, and good evening. Welcome to the Muslim Law Student Association's first Ramadan event. My name is Noor Khalid. I am the Vice President of the Muslim Law Student Association. I also want to introduce first-year student and MALSA's treasurer, Caitlin Chopra. You can unmute yourself. So thank you everyone for taking the time to attend our Ramadan event. I know it's been a difficult year with the pandemic and constant Zoom meetings, but I really appreciate your attendance at tonight's event. For the students joining us today, I hope this information will give you insight into why Muslims observe Ramadan, because at some point you will work with a Muslim client, staff member, attorney, or judge. For the staff and professors and deans joining us, I hope this information will help you connect with your students and coworkers. And for anyone who doesn't fall into those categories, I hope this information is beneficial in helping you to be an ally. To begin, I have a short video to show that really covers the basics of what is Ramadan. So I will share my screen.
Each year, for 30 days, 1.5 billion Muslims around the world fast during the...
Are you all able to hear that?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because I couldn't hear it on my end.
month
Sorry.
of Ramadan. You may have heard about Ramadan as a time during which followers of Islam abstain from food and drink each day from dawn until sunset. But there's much more to this month than simply not eating or drinking. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. Being lunar means, in effect, that within the span of every 30 years or so, the month of Ramadan falls in each of the 4 seasons, hence the just nature of the lunar system. Just imagine the month arising at the same time every summer or every winter, which brings us to an interesting question. It's hard enough to abstain from food and water for a whole day. How do people do it in the summer? Not even water? Actions that Muslims are commanded to avoid during fasting hours include eating, drinking, smoking, having sex, and the list continues. Then they are free vis-a-vis these actions until daybreak of the following day. The time to break the fast, or in other words, to feast, coincides with sunset. It is often a fun time for families and friends who share meals and invite each other over for dinner, or dine with their local community at a mosque or center. Obviously, there are exceptions. For someone with health concerns who requires medications throughout the day, fasting is not an option for them. In general, where fasting compromises an ill person's pace of treatment or prognosis, they are ordered to refrain. Other exceptions include pregnant women, nursing mothers, postpartum women, children, travelers, and seniors who either cannot tolerate fasting or upon whom fasting is harmful. Almost everyone else, fasting is fair game. The month of Ramadan is a time of reflection and self-improvement in terms of oneself, one's behavior with other people, and one's relationship with the divine. Fasting has much inner and outer wisdom underlying it. It is a way for a person to feel solidarity with the millions of poor and hungry people around the world who are fasting day and night without a choice. People usually take food and water for granted and rarely ever feel real hunger, and so don't think about those who are suffering. Fasting is a means for one to share a little bit in the pain that millions of others go through every day, and to feel more motivated to give to charity to help those who are in need and society's more susceptible ones. Fasting means abandoning, and this abandoning entails physical actions such as eating, drinking, and abstract actions such as abandoning one's ego and becoming totally selfless and annihilated in the divine. With all actions, there is an inner and an outer meaning. The inner objective in fasting is to attain an inner state of silence. This is acquired by slowly, surely taming one's animal dimension, thus becoming closer and closer to the essence of what we are. Don't be sidetracked by the negative images you encounter in the media. Why not experience it for yourself and visit your local Islamic center and take part in the Ramadan experience? See how it goes. Get to know yourself better.
I thought that video was really all encompassing, kind of explaining everything with just the basics, and just a few things to fill in that the video might have not touched upon. So this year, Ramadan began a few days ago on April 13th, and it will end on either May 11th or 12th, depending on the lunar calendar. In addition to the religious and spiritual benefits of fasting during Ramadan, there are health benefits as it teaches self-control, it cleanses the digestive system, it reduces other health concerns such as cholesterol and heart disease. The end of Ramadan is celebrated with Eid, which is a big event which has prayers, gifts, family time, and feasting. Each family celebrates with their own traditions, but the core of Eid is like any other event, which is spending time with your family and enjoying a nice meal. A few tips that I have for everyone just in general is that we really appreciate it when you wish us a happy Eid or a happy Ramadan, whenever it is that time of year. And we really don't mind being around other people who are eating or drinking while we are fasting, as long as they're respectful that we're fasting and we will not be partaking in the meal. And lastly, feel free to ask questions, whether it's during tonight's event, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand, put it in the chat box, or even when you run into a Muslim colleague, we're always happy to answer questions. Now let's turn to our guest speaker. So a little background on Zainab Chaudhry is that she graduated from Albany Law in 1998, and she currently works as the principal court attorney at the Court of Appeals. Zainab has an impressive resume, as she previously worked as an assistant solicitor general at the New York State Attorney General's office in the Appeals and Opinions Bureau. Aside from her professional accomplishments, Zainab has been a wonderful mentor to me during my law school journey, and I'm grateful for all of her support. Now I will turn the floor to our speaker, Zainab Chaudhry.
Hi, Noor. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And, Noor asked me to speak a little bit about my observation of Ramadan and what it means to me. And then I believe she's going to ask me some questions to keep the conversation going. But just to start, I think that video really was perfect because it talked about the various different dimensions of Ramadan, which does have a physical component, but really has that being the means to a spiritual component of purification and reflection. And, that's really what it's been to me, is a chance to reset after, the year, especially a year like this, clean the slate, start fresh, both in terms of my own personal relationship spiritually with God, and what I want to be doing to cultivate that, to stop and think about that in a more meaningful way and take more time to reflect on that when the rest of time of life is so busy and you're always sort of running here and there and you don't get to do that. So to me, it's a chance to start fresh in that way. And it's really important to stop and take time to do that. I also find it a good time to be grateful for the bounties and blessings that I personally have in my life. I think we all do. And of course, one should be doing that all the time, but sometimes you need a specific occasion to really more consciously think about that. And, I think the video touched upon, having more of a feeling towards those less fortunate and spending time in charity for them and helping others. So that's a big part of my practice of Ramadan beyond just the fasting. I really try to step that up also during the month, not only practicing gratefulness and making lists and doing that in my prayers, but to show that by helping others as much as I can. I think it for me also highlights a person's reliance or dependence upon God. If one believes there in that as a being, or even the universe, that there's something greater out there that is really providing for us in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do on our own. And I always, just when I think, wow, I've really been blessed with so much in life, there's another blessing that appears. And so to me, Ramadan really highlights that relationship of dependence and reliance. And then I think the last thing, just tying it all back, is just the cleansing aspect of it, both physically and spiritually. And it's funny, it's a hard thing to do, the fast. But as a Muslim that wants to fast, when you're not able to fast, it's actually very painful. And, not to share too much personal detail, but I actually had a doctor's appointment this morning and I have a non-serious thing going on. And the doctor advised me, I need you not to fast. And that was really hard to hear, because it's something you really look forward to practicing to achieve all these benefits. And, there's other things I can do to commemorate Ramadan, but it's just such an important and beautiful part of our traditions annually that it's even really difficult to think you couldn't participate in it for a season in the same way you normally do.
Yeah, Magna, go ahead.
I was just wondering what you would do when you aren't able to practice that way, kind of like you were speaking, just because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's different things that I try to do. I try to, one of the things a lot of people, even fasting people do, is try to recite the Quran, which is the Muslim holy book. And one of the significant aspects of Ramadan is the Islamic belief that the first verses of the Quran were revealed in the month of Ramadan. So reciting the Quran or reflecting on its meanings, that more people try to do that in Ramadan. So that's something that someone who's not fasting could do more of. Again, getting involved in more charitable types of things, or feeding people. Maybe I'm not able to fast, but I could prepare a meal for my neighbor. And so I try to plan out, doing things like that. And, in non-pandemic times, one would be attending services at the mosque. There's nightly services, which includes prayers and also sermons and other, sort of reminders about various spiritual teachings. So people engage in that. And now, of course, all that is live streamed. So I'm actually incorporating that a little bit, listening to the live stream service in the evening. So there's still a lot one can do, but there is that piece that's missing. Yeah, but it's still fulfilling, to do those other things.
Thank you.
So one of the questions I had prepared was, how have your employers or coworkers interacted with you on this topic of Ramadan and fasting in general?
I have to say, I have been really just blessed to work in wonderful places with wonderful coworkers and bosses. And so I feel like that has always been a positive experience. And there has always been sort of not even, I don't know if I should say curiosity, but, just an openness to learning about it and caring about that I'm doing that and what would make me comfortable, or what someone could do, as a coworker or as a boss to facilitate my practice. So I've really been lucky in that way, to have that positivity. I definitely understand that there could be people who are in situations where they would not feel like there would be a positive view of what they were doing, and a worry maybe from employers that it was going to impact their performance at work. So I have been very fortunate. I think being, honest about what you might need at a time like this in the workplace is really important, with your boss or with your employer. Broaching that ahead of time with them, not the day before, if you want to have a change in your schedule or something like that. And, maybe proposing some specific accommodations. I've always found that to generate a more positive response when you have an idea of how you can still do your work and, do your spiritual practice in case, you needed to modify anything in your workday.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Zainab?
Hi Zainab. I have a question for you. How did you deal with the Ramadan while being a law student, and trying to focus in class, and being prepared for your exams, especially now with Zoom? I find it very difficult to concentrate sometimes. And Dean Queenan, I had her class yesterday, and the stomach was just grumbling the entire time. So I'm just curious, how did you manage Ramadan while you were a student, and what tips and advice can you give to us as students who are observing the fast?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. And, law school is maybe more rigorous and more all-encompassing than some employment, where there's maybe more flexibility with your workday. There's no way around it. It is hard. And I can't specifically remember what I did in law school in particular, that I'm not as young as I look on TV. So that was a long time ago, but I do, obviously at work, I struggle with the same things about concentrating and, to the extent you can, I know you can't do it with classes that are set at a time, but, to the extent you can move things around, other things, have some Zoom meetings after breaking fast, that always helps to minimize, what you have to do, and anything that maybe you can be flexible with moving, I tried to move meetings or study groups and things like that to the after breaking fast hour after sunset. The hard thing for me, and maybe for a lot of people, is the caffeine intake. You're not having that in the morning, and so that can help be a problem during the day. So I would try to have something. I don't know if the video mentioned it, but a lot of Muslims wake up in the pre-dawn hour to have a meal. And so, maybe try to have something there. And if you're now it's not that early, so it's still early, but you might be able to eat and have some caffeine and coffee and stay awake and kind of do some things in the early morning to boost your concentration. I probably shouldn't recommend this, but I take 4 Advil every day before starting the fast. It really cuts down on the headache and just, being able to be a little more focused. And try to make everything else about your surroundings that you can comfortable. If it's too hot, that's going to impact you. So try to have a cool environment. And, every person is different. So I think, maybe other people have different tips, but I just find trying to, stay hydrated when I can drink, because that's another thing. And having the caffeine when I can drink really helped me, stay more sharper during the day.
Okay, I'll take that all into consideration. Thank you.
Dina.
So thank you so much for doing this, and
Alicia.
I'm learning a lot, and I really appreciate the gathering. I'm curious about kids, and when do they start participating, and is there a sort of coming of age ceremony in the Muslim faith, similar to in the Jewish faith or the Christian faith?
Hi, Alicia. Thanks for the
Hey.
question. It's nice to see you. Kids, certainly young kids, are not required to be fasting. There's some traditions culturally have a coming of age ceremony that's more of a ceremony type of thing, but typically in the traditional Islamic culture, that age is the age of puberty. So when a girl is reaching that age, or boys are reaching that age, they would be required to start taking on the responsibility of fasting. So I don't have kids, but my sister has 3 daughters, and they're 11 and 6 and 3. And so the 6 and the 11-year-old, they're trying to get them used to the idea. So they'll fast from breakfast till lunch, without snacks or some little things. My older niece tries to fast half a day, or every 4th day or something like that, where they're just trying it out to get them used to the idea for when it does become requirement for them as part of the faith to do. And I think parents try to make it really festive for them throughout the season with different activities and things like that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, from my own experience, when I was a kid, I had my my family fasting, and I was always so curious as to, they're waking up so early in the morning, and I want to be there too, and I just want to be there with them. And so I think I did my first fast when I was 5 years old. I only did one. I didn't do all 30. I just did the one. It was also winter time, so the days were much shorter. So it was easy in that sense. But yeah, there's something where kids are really curious about all of this, and they really want to be doing the same thing that the older people are doing too. So it's usually fun.
Just to pick up on something Noor just said, which maybe some people are not aware of, Ramadan does not fall at the same time every year in our solar calendar that we use, and it follows the lunar calendar, and it's not corrected in any way to sort of correspond to the same time on the solar calendar. So every year, the start of Ramadan is 10 or 11 days earlier than it was the preceding year. And so it sort of travels throughout the year. I think it takes maybe 36 years to go, all the way through the solar calendar. So, during the summer, obviously the days are much longer and the fasting is longer. And then in the winter, you're done at 4:30. And so it feels much easier. So it's just kind of interesting that you have a fasting experience, of fasting in every season and every type of weather.
So another question I had was, how do you, I don't know if you've ever run into someone asking you the phrase of not even water. So how would you respond to that person? How do you go about that conversation when someone says something like not even water?
Well, I think it's great that they're asking the question. And it's an opportunity to, inform them about your practice and what it means. And so I don't look at it as a, you know, annoying question or an ignorant question. I think it's just someone who really maybe doesn't know and is trying to learn. So I personally take the opportunity to say, yeah, not even water. And, it's kind of hard. That's actually the hardest thing, over food for me is not being hydrated or, whatever, and take the opportunity to have a casual conversation about it. And, I think it's really great. When I was growing up or even as a new attorney, not a lot of people knew about Ramadan. I know everybody doesn't know everything, but I feel like there's more of an awareness socially about it now in schools and in workplaces and just the culture generally. So I think that even makes people maybe more open to asking questions because they know a little bit, but they really want to understand a little more. So I always take it as an opportunity to engage in a conversation about it. And I'm really happy that people ask rather than not ask.
For sure. It's always good to be the one who can kind of give them some guidance on the questions that they may have. I think you kind of answered this, but maybe just to go into a little bit more detail, just about how you balance your workload during Ramadan. So I know you said sometimes you try to move your meetings to be later in the day. Is there anything else that you kind of do to balance everything out, just in general for the whole month of Ramadan?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It does require a lot of planning, and that's what I would encourage people who are fasting to do. You don't want to just show up on day one and not have thought about how it's going to impact your schedule, because it definitely does, not just your own capacity, maybe while you're fasting, but also, if you are doing the extra acts that you want to do or the extra charitable work or the extra services that you're going to, there's a lot of time that takes up. So for me, I try to, plan for not having to work late to the extent I can during that month. So to me, that means really front loading things before Ramadan to the extent I can, get ahead of my work. Things always come up, of course, but so really trying to work ahead before Ramadan starts so that I can have a more normal schedule. The other thing I do, and it depends on your workplace, and like when I was at the AG's office, their policy just generally about people's schedules was very flexible. Some people came in at 8, some people came in at 10 to start their workday, and so that was very conducive to a Ramadan practice because let's say I had spent a late night at the services, in the summer, they were very late. They were going from 10 p.m. to midnight. And then you're getting home and winding down. And then if you're getting up to eat, you're really losing a lot of sleep. So to me, having the option to go in at 10, I really found that I was better rested, was better focused, could really be more efficient at work than going in on the early end. I know everybody can't do that, but to the extent you have a flexible workplace, I think that's another way to manage your work. I don't have the same exact flexibility in my current job. The court schedule is pretty firm. So I'm really trying to just, be as efficient as I can, not stay past 5, but then, if I need to log on at night to work on things, I do that. So I think it just depends on where you're going to be. And, but, one thing I would say is not to hesitate to ask your employer for an accommodation if you think you need something, like maybe a shift in your work times or something that might help you strike that balance. I mean, it is hard, but it's certainly doable, right? There's, basketball players who play basketball while they're fasting. And I feel like for Muslims who are doing it with, really that feeling of faith about it, they don't feel limited. I mean, it's hard and you've got to cope with a few things, but you don't feel like you can't do what you normally do. And I think that's the beauty of it, is no one's asking you to, hole yourself up in your room for 30 days and not live your life. I think that's what's beautiful about most of the Islamic religion, is that it's practical, and yes, there's things to do, but it's all a balance, and, you know, just trying to find time for it and think about how to make time for it all.
Caitlin?
Hi, thank you for coming. So I wanted to ask, this is, I guess, maybe Albany specific, since a lot of students are, you know, coming from out of the area. Is there anything like in or around Albany that you enjoy doing during Ramadan? Like, I don't know, different places or restaurants that are open late or anything like that?
You know, I could have told you about that pre-pandemic, but I really don't know what there is to do like that now. I remember, you know, just even a couple years ago, you know, different mosques and Islamic centers, they have nightly iftar dinners, you know, for breaking the fast, called an iftar dinner. And, you know, I would enjoy going to the different mosques and, you know, trying the different foods. For example, there's a Bosnian mosque in Manans, and the Bosnian food is amazing. And so I'd go with groups of friends and, you know, have what they were serving that people had from their community had cooked for the iftar, and just a chance to learn about different cultures, even within the Islamic faith, you know, that there was so much of that going on. And I just don't think that's happening right now. I know that places are providing like boxed meals and things like that for people who need to come and pick up meals, but that social aspect is not really there right now. But I'm sure there are restaurants that are open and doing that locally, and maybe I'll ask somebody else who might know and get back to you. But I think, like I said, they're having the services at the mosque in person, but for a limited number of people. So I'm not going personally, but I know they are taking precautions to have some people attend live, even though they are also live streaming it. So if someone wanted to partake in that, I think there's a registration process to go on the evening that you want to go and see the services live or attend them. But I can ask and let you know if I know hear of anything more specific.
Thank you. I'm obsessed with Bosnian food. So
Oh,
that's the
know,
one with like a big basketball court, I think, in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really beautiful, that one.
Maybe they're giving away boxed meals, so
You
we
know,
should go and get
I didn't
some.
think
Yeah.
about that. I'm gonna look that up.
All right, let
So
me know if you
thank
find out.
I will.
Yeah, that's really great. I think even last year, because the pandemic was happening and then we had Ramadan, that some places even did like a drive-through iftar. And so like you just like drove by with your car, picked up, you got your box of whatever they were serving that night. And it was wonderful because you still got that community aspect. Because that's what I miss the most, is like having a meal with just a bunch of people around you. Because that's the point of this, right? So another question is, what is your family tradition for Ramadan? Is there anything that you guys do in particular that you really enjoy and look forward to every year?
Well, one thing we do, which we normally don't do most of the year, is actually eat dinner together every night. You know, everybody's coming home at different times from work or whatever they're doing. And, you know, we just never really get to coordinate, but everybody makes the effort in Ramadan to eat together. And so that's one of our big traditions. And certainly we have certain foods that, you know, we make, and particularly at the end for the holiday, there's certain foods that we like to make. But our really one big tradition, this is going to sound so silly, but I think it just illustrates, you know, the American Muslim experience. The very first night of Ramadan, the first fast, when we break our fast, it's our family tradition to get pizza from our favorite pizza place and break fast with that, you know. And it's funny because I think people are thinking we're having these, you know, gourmet, you know, South Asian dishes and things like that, which, you know, we do. My sister-in-law who does most of the cooking does that, but I don't know. This is just one of our things. The first night is always a pizza night. So no one has to cook, you know, because we've all been fasting, and it's been a little hard. The first day is really the hardest. So that's something we do just to have fun and take care of each other.
That's great. I know in my household, we'll make a calendar and we will write down like what fast food we want on what days. So we've already thought about it in advance, because you know you're going to get those cravings throughout the day of like, oh, and I want this and I want that. So we're like, instead of just getting it all in one day, let's like pan it out
That's
throughout
smart.
the whole month. And then we tell our mom, okay, on these days you can cook this, and on these days we're getting takeout. So that's just how we try to balance it.
That's really nice. That's really nice. It's funny, you know, people would think you would lose weight in Ramadan, but you really don't, because you just all day are thinking of all the junky, you know, foods you want to eat, and then you actually eat them, and you think because you fasted all day, you can eat dessert every night too, you know, so it just adds up. One of the things I try to do, which is hard to do, but now that the weather's good, it's easier, is just to get out for a walk, or do some kind of, you know, I can't do a full-on workout if you're fasting, obviously, or some people do, but you know, take a walk around for a mile or two or something before breaking the fast, just to keep your body moving is important.
Yeah, that's very important. What would be maybe a family tradition you have for Eid? Eid is, you know, the big event that we have, which is the start of a new month, but it's the end of Ramadan. Is there anything that your family does in particular for that?
We cook a particular dish, and maybe you know it, Noor. It's called savanya, and it's like very thin vermicelli noodles. It can be cooked different ways, but we cook it with milk and sugar, and it has cardamom pods in it, and you garnish it with pistachios or dates or whatever your choice of garnish is. And we always make my mom makes it. She gets up in the morning really early before the prayer service and makes it, and she forces us to eat some of it before we even celebrate the day or have the prayer service, because to her, and I think the idea behind it is that, you know, we've been fasting all these days, and so this is a day of not fasting and of celebrating, and so having a sweet dish, having the sweetness of that symbolize the celebration of what you've accomplished. So we always have that, we never miss it. And then the rest of the day is just, you know, what anyone does at any holiday, right? Going around from home to home or visiting family and friends and pigging out for 3 days. You know, it's very festive. And then when we don't have any little kids really right now in the house, but it was a big time to give gifts to kids. And we would get what was called ED, which is you know, money from elder, you know, your parents' friends or your parents, and you'd always wait and see how much were you going to get. Were you going to get a 5? Were you going to get a 20? You know, it was really fun for the kids, trying to make it really festive. And I think here, living in this culture where, like at Christmas, there's a big thing of gifts, you know, for people celebrating Christmas. And you know, as a kid, I always felt left out about, you know, why don't we do that and have presents? And so I think a lot of families, not that I'm saying they make Eid like Christmas, but, you know, keep it festive for the kids so that they really enjoy their holiday and are not feeling like they don't have a holiday where they get to have fun like that.
Yes, for sure. Genevieve?
Zainab, I know you said one of the things that you like to focus on during Ramadan is strengthen your relationship with Allah and trying to make yourself as a better Muslim. So one of the things that I've been doing is, well, I'm starting Arabic lessons at the masjid in Latham, and I'm trying to learn the Quran in a better way. So I'm wondering, what do you recommend for younger people who are trying to get closer to Allah, who are trying to like refine themselves while, you know, in this month? And I'm not new to the faith, but I will say that I am new and taking it more seriously for myself. So I just wanted to know, what are you doing this month? And you can talk about your experience while you were a law student that you did to get closer to Allah and the things that mean a lot to you during this month.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like you're doing the right things, and you're doing what I actually did as a law student. You know, I think, you know, I grew up with Islam culturally. I don't think I ever thought about it until I was older. And actually, when my dad had passed away, you know, those kinds of events make you think about life and death, and what is my relationship to the universe, and is there a God out there? And I really started at that beginning level at that point in life. which was after college for me, and really independently coming to the decision that I wanted to practice and be a Muslim. And that was the year prior to starting law school. So I was very new in my journey at that time. And I did what you were doing. I was going to school, but I was going to the mosque on the weekend and attending, there's always courses and classes going on. And now there's a lot, not just in the pandemic, but in general, there's so much online now that you can do conveniently. But I would go to learn what I could from the imam at the mosque and about Islamic law or about Arabic as a language. So it was really important to me at that time to be really connected to a community. So I think for you, going to the center to take those classes is really, what I had done and what I would do. And now, having sort of been through that phase, I actually, some of you may or may not know, I spent 4 years in Syria. After I graduated law school, I went to the Court of Appeals as a staff law clerk and then clerking for one of the judges at that time on the court. And after that clerkship ended, so that was 4 years after law school, I had just come to this realization that, I've spent my whole life, learning and getting educated in a secular sense, but that I really didn't know that much, and feeling, having just kind of come new a few years prior to independently coming to my faith, I wanted to spend more time learning that. So I went abroad. I spent most of my time in Syria at that time and took Arabic and learned Arabic and studied Islamic law and sat with some spiritual masters there. And so that really, I know, that's not something people can do now. And so no one can certainly go to Syria. But that was a good reset for me and, to really learn more. And then when I came back and I got, busy in my career and really trying to build that, because I had not been practicing law for 4 years. So I wasn't doing as much of the classes and things like that, but just trying to implement what I had learned, because it's oftentimes you take courses and you learn things or you try things, but then you don't really implement them and practice them. So kind of just reviewing what I had already done and now trying to have a more deeper personal relationship, more time in personal reflection rather than in classes and communities. But that's what works for me. But certainly I did what you were doing when I was in law school. And I thought that was good to have that balance.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm also wondering, like, did you ever question like the Quran or like the cultural aspects of it in relation to just the things that happen to like women or just things that we might, like, I'm in the military and I don't believe in war, and people always ask me, well, why are you in this organization? And I'm like, well, you have to bring peace, right? And I'm wondering, like, when I was there, a lot of people didn't even know like a Black Muslim, like a person of color could be Muslim, and one of the things that I was trying to teach them was, well, Islam is different from, the wars that are happening. So I'm wondering, how did you ever come into terms with the stereotypes or the things associated with Islam and sometimes the culture versus what's in the Quran, and how you're supposed to explain that to people and live life with yourself? So.
Yeah, no, I think anyone who is a thoughtful Muslim should go through that process. And I certainly did. And you're certainly right. There's sort of what the ideal traditional Islamic teaching is, which is about peace and equality and all of those things. And then there's the reality of societies and cultures that have overlaid onto those principles, either in various places in the world or, even here, you have pockets of that. So it's hard to reconcile them. And I don't think one needs to reconcile them, but just to know and to explain to people, that when those things are out there, that those are not representing true Islamic values for whatever reasons, right? There's political reasons and historical reasons for all of that stuff that, how women are treated in certain countries or societies, or, the people who are perpetrating terrorist acts in the name of Islam, right? There's a lot of stuff that if you ask any normal practicing Muslim on the street, they would say, of course, that's not Islamic. So I think it's just trying to help people understand that there's really a distinction there. that isn't about religion necessarily, you know, that those other things are other things. But it's really hard. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think you just have to be, or I just have decided that I have to be the best Muslim that I can be personally, and have people see that in my day-to-day life. And anyone I interact with, you know, would understand what Islam really is by interacting with me. And so that's how I view it, that I have a personal responsibility in that sense to be the walking, talking embodiment of what I think a Muslim who's following, you know, to the best of their ability. Obviously, no one can be perfect. You know, their tradition as it was supposed to be. But I know it's really hard, and it's hard for people to separate those things. So it's a good question. I just encourage you to, you know, keep just trying to help people understand. And sometimes you can't, right? And so you have to know when to not have the conversation and not force that on people, because some people will just see what they want to see. Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Caitlin?
So I was wondering if there's anything, because I like personally, I can get away with, like, I'm not like visibly Muslim. So I think sometimes it's easy to just, you know, it doesn't come up. So I was just wondering if there's anything that maybe like gives you confidence to be kind of like unapologetically Muslim. I don't want to like project any
Yeah.
anything
No, I know
onto
what
you,
you're
but
saying.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think that time that I thought about that was, you know, when I made that conscious decision to really adopt this faith as my own as an adult in my early 20s. You know, I just never looked back after that. And, you know, I've had challenges in law school and in searching for jobs. And, you know, it's just very obvious that I am something different. But I really just thought to myself, you know, when I made a commitment to be faithful, that I felt that if I'd made that my priority personally, you know, internally, then whatever happened outside of that, you know, that path would be made easy for me, even if I faced challenges. You know, if I had a job interview where I walked in and, you know, this happened at a law firm locally, you go in and the guy says, "Oh, you look good on paper," and his jaw's on the floor, and, you know, they don't interview me. But, you know, I walk out thinking, well, that sucked, but you know what? I don't want to be in a place that doesn't respect who I am. And I'm sure that there will be an opening somewhere else. And the somewhere else always turned out to be better than the places that, you know, where I had that kind of, you know, interaction with people. So, and maybe it's partly my personality, you know, I'm confident in who I am. And you know, it's, you know, I don't think I always was that way. And so I think it's just a personal process. And, you know, if someone isn't comfortable being fully out there like that, I don't think they have to be, you know, they should just do what they're comfortable with. But for me, I take it as teaching moments. Like if I feel comfortable and confident, then I should be strong for people who can't maybe be strong, and represent Muslim women to other people. You know, I've had people say things like, "Oh, I never thought a Muslim woman would be like you for whatever X or Y reason." You know, and I know it would be a weird statement, and, you know, someone could be offended by it, but I just think it's great. I've changed someone's mind about what a Muslim woman is, you know, and, you know, I remember this story, and I probably said it at some other law school event, but when I worked for Judge Wesley, who was on the Court of Appeals, and, you know, he was a white Republican judge from Western New York. You know, I don't think they have a lot of Muslims in Geneseo. That's where his home chambers were. And, you know, he had asked me to come work for him, and I moved to Geneseo. And, you know, it was just, you know, there were experiences that were difficult, but it just, you know, by being myself, I changed people's minds that I interacted with on a personal level, on a work level. So I just look at it as an opportunity, even when things seem challenging. And I think that helps give me more confidence too.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Does anybody in the audience have any questions that they would like to ask? Just feel free to unmute, put it in the chat, put your hand up, anything.
I don't have a question, but I'd love to make a comment based on what Zainab and others have been saying. And that is it's so typical in our culture to think of satisfaction only in terms of having something or getting something. And we have almost no experience of experiencing the satisfaction of giving something up when it's really hard to do that. And how that process can, as you've talked about, can really give you an inner focus. I've always been fascinated with Ramadan, with the external focus of trying to understand the experience of the poor, voluntarily putting yourself in a situation where you are hungry and thirsty, but the whole spiritual sense of denial as something that's good, something that ultimately, even though it hurts, can bring satisfaction. I just think is an absolutely wonderful aspect of this.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I couldn't agree more. You know, the inner resilience that builds, and patience, and you know, just the ability to sort of know that you can kind of almost handle anything by being able to do that, and just the idea of putting moderation in one's life, or that self-control. I mean, it really is a significant piece of what Ramadan is about, for sure. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you, Professor Rayhan. Halima?
Hi. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on getting the vaccine while you're fasting. I had signed up to get the vaccine on Tuesday, but then it got canceled. And I told my mom about it, and she told me that I should not get it before 8 p.m. because I was fasting, but I got it anyway. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that, and whether or not we're allowed to get the vaccine while we're fasting.
That's a good question. I will start out by saying I have studied some Islamic law, but I am not an Islamic scholar. So, what I'm going to say, I am not, purporting to give a Islamic legal ruling on whether that is permissible. But my personal studies and what I've understood about what can break the fast, that an intramuscular vaccination would not break your fast. Things that would enter, your oral cavities or digestive cavities, those could break your fast. But so and we're also in a pandemic. So I think even if there were a breaking fast component to it, if there was a view Islamically from a legal standpoint that were to break your fast, that I think given the circumstances that we're in, you can't really, choose really the time to get the vaccination or the day to get the vaccination, that the practical considerations and the societal considerations and other public health reasons personally for you and for society would overcome the normal legal ruling if it were to be something that normally would break your fast. But I think in this case, even people who had that view would say your priority is your health and the communal health, so that you would take the vaccine. But personally, I don't think that it does break the fast.
Thank you. That's what I told her, but she just.
Well, it's hard with parents. They're very traditional many times. They grow up with an understanding of Islamic law that is sometimes, more cultural or more traditional, and not necessarily, studied in the way that it would be by Islamic law scholars, and understanding, what are the real principles behind the fast and what breaks the fast. So, maybe just don't tell her and just get it.
That's great. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
I did think of one thing that after Professor Rayhan made her comment, it's very true, and something that we didn't touch on because fasting is obviously what's visible to the rest of the world. But one of my favorite parts about Ramadan is, I mean, you should do it all the time, but especially the last 10 nights, like your good deeds are multiplied. And like, I'm a student, so I don't have too much, but like the last 10 nights, maybe I can give $10 to this charity, and then the next $10 to another charity, which normally I wouldn't think about doing giving $10 to a charity because it's so little. But I think I know I should think like this all the time. So, but you know, I know there's so many other people doing similar good deeds that it's like really compounding, and these charities are really benefiting. And so I don't know, for me, that's the best part, especially since community is such a big aspect. Other charities that, you know, build community in some way, like I know I always do St. Jude's because I mean, they're saving babies' lives, and you know, that's so important. And you know, my undergrad MSA and Muslim Students Association, so things like that, that's one of my favorite things. So it's something where you're giving up something, but spiritually you're gaining something, which was, I think, part of the point of Professor Rehan's comment. So thank you.
I think that's a great comment and a great thing to do. And like you said, we should really be thinking about doing these things all the time. And I'm sure you do other charitable things during the year, but it just focuses you to kind of prioritize it and come up with a plan for doing it. And just for people who are on and don't know, the last 10 nights of Ramadan are considered, you know, the most holy nights. And it is within those last 10 nights that Islamic tradition believes the verses of the Quran were first revealed to Prophet Muhammad. But it's unknown which of those 10 nights it is. So Muslims really step it up in the last 10 nights. So if they've been slacking off for the first, 20 days, this is where they really step up trying to do charity or trying to do extra prayers or whatever it is that they want to do, read more Quran. So that's why the last 10 nights have a particular significance. So, just going back to kind of with what we started with, if your schedule with school or work is such that, maybe you really can't manage doing everything you want to during the whole month, maybe you can prioritize the last week. Maybe you can take that week off for work or, take a few days off or, something like that to prioritize your time of maximizing the benefit that you want to get in Ramadan. That's another way to do it. So I love your idea, and I think I'm going to do something like that.
Yeah, that's excellent. And with that, I think that kind of brings everything to a close because we're talking about the end of Ramadan and we're getting to the end of our time as well. So once again, I want to thank Zainab Chaudhry for making yourself available to us tonight. You were wonderful as always. I really appreciate all of your support and help throughout the years. And I hope for the future, Muslim Law Student Association at Albany Law, that you're able to still continue helping them as well. So thank you very much. I would also like to just thank everyone who joined us tonight. I hope you were able to learn something new today. For those of you who will be receiving the gift card, you will be getting an email from me confirming that you're getting the gift card, and then you'll get an email from Chipotle with the information about the gift card. So that was all for tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Noor, for arranging it, and everybody for your great questions. It's really great to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Can tell
you.
Professor Dean Queenan to cancel her midterm for Ramadan?
No, we still take midterms.
We'll go slow. You can go slow, Genevieve.
It's worth asking.
Yeah. You can watch the recording.
Okay. I thought we wanted people to accommodate us.
Yes, that's it. I'm happy to meet with you at night whenever you would like.
No, Dean Queenan, don't worry. Thank you, Zainab.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Zainab.
Good night. Thanks, Alicia.